Good morning, everyone. The time is now 11 a.m., and we will now begin the second of 3 virtual public information sessions for the Port Arthur and vicinity Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. On behalf of the project team, we thank you for your time and interest in the Port Arthur project. My name is Connor Stokes, and I will be facilitating this morning's public information session. Before we proceed with our agenda, I would like to review some housekeeping items to help the meeting run smoothly. The chat feature is open for you to provide your email if you'd like to be added to our email distribution list. The chat feature can also be used to send us questions. As you think of these questions, please enter them into the WebEx chat feature. We will collect these questions, and later, following the presentation, they'll be presented to our panel for their comment and response during the question and answer session. If we don't have time to get to every question today, we encourage you to submit questions or inquiries to the project email address. Please do not unmute your phone or WebEx audio connection with the button at the bottom of your screen. Please also understand that this public information session is not considered a formal NEPA public meeting. Therefore, any questions or responses provided today will not become a part of the administrative record. However, we do value your participation, and we look forward to taking and responding to questions after the presentation. I will now introduce the project team. From the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we are joined by Charles Wheeler, Project Manager for the Port Arthur Project, Bobby Van Cleve, Lead Engineer, Michaela Kinsey, Real Estate Specialist, Jeff Pinsky, Chief of Environmental Compliance, and Kelly Burks-Copes, Communications Project Manager. And from the Jefferson County Drainage District Number 7, or DD7, the project sponsor, we are joined by General Manager Phil Kelly and District Engineer Alan Sims. Before today's presentation, we'd like to begin this morning with opening remarks from the Corps and DD7. Kelly?
Thank you, Connor.
And thanks to all of you out there for joining us in this second of 3 information sessions. We trust that most of you are familiar with the project, and we hope that this is not the first time that you've received information about the Sabine to Galveston program. The S2G program is for short, or the Port Arthur project specifically.
We're excited for this update, and we plan to continue this sort of engagement on a fairly regular basis over the next several years as the project proceeds. This is a very important project for the region, and your input is vital to the process, and so we look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'll hand it over to Phil Kelly at the Jefferson County Drainage District Number 7. Phil?
Hello, my name is Phil Kelly, and I work as the General Manager here for Jefferson County Drainage District Number 7. Here with me today is Alan Sims, our Director of Engineering. We here at Jefferson County Drainage District 7 welcome you to this public information meeting. We would also like to thank the United States Corps of Engineers for hosting these meetings to better inform our citizens. Just a little background information, Drainage District Number 7 currently serves as a non-federal sponsor of the Port Arthur and vicinity Flood Protection Levee Project, which came about as a result of Hurricane Carla back in 1961. Which inundated a large portion of our area from a storm surge. Congressman Jack Brooks at that time pushed Congress to authorize and appropriate funds to the Corps of Engineers to design and construct the Hurricane Flood Protection Levee System here in South Jefferson County. Construction of the levee system began in the late 60s through the 70s and was completed around 1980. Upon completion, the levee system and associated pump stations were turned over to Drainage District 7 for maintenance and operation. This levee system protects the entire communities of Port Arthur and Groves, as well as portions of Port Neches and Needland, from storm surges and high waters associated with coastal storms. Fast forward to present, in November of 2019, Drainage District 7 entered into a project partnership agreement with the Corps of Engineers to update and improve the levee system. We here at DD7 certainly value our partnership with the Corps and look forward to working with the Corps of Engineers and you, our citizens, to provide added protection to our region by the implementation of the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. DD7 believes this meeting will be very informative and answer many of your questions. With that, the Corps will now continue with their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the Port Arthur project presentation from Project Manager Charles Wheeler.
Good morning. I'm Charles Wheeler, the project manager of the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay Port Arthur project. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to be here and share with you what we've been working on the last couple of years on the Port Arthur project. This color-coded graphic represents various projects that make up the Corps' mission. Starting in the southeast corner, you can see the beginning of the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay program, which includes orange, in orange, a completely new system, Port Arthur in blue. It looks like the site's missing the. Oh, there we go. Port Arthur is there, and okay, so orange is in the southeast corner. It's a completely new system. And then Port Arthur's in blue. And we're upgrading this system, making improvements. And then Freeport in red to the southwest. This all makes up the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay program. Now, if you go eastward from Freeport, you can see in light blue the Coastal Texas project, which was recently signed and endorsed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Chief of Engineers. And these projects together will provide multiple lines of defense for the Texas Gulf Coast. This is a regional approach to storm surge risk reduction and our effort to mitigate erosion of our bay and Gulf shorelines. This system of systems risk management strategy will increase the region's ability to be prepared and withstand storms and maintain the region's critical infrastructure for years to come. When tropical storms or hurricanes impact the Texas coast, the immediate fallout and the continued aftermath affects not only the people who live in these coastal counties, but also the entire nation. It is critical that we take action now to avoid the destruction that these future storms could bring. That's why Congress has given us this important mission, a landmark mission, to be proactive rather than reactive, as we have taken many lessons learned from Hurricane Katrina and we're implementing them in our project. Now, through the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018, Congress authorized and fully funded all three of these projects: Freeport in green there, Port Arthur in maroon, reddish color, and orange, to move forward and begin pre-construction, engineering, and design, or what we call PED. Following PED, we move into construction. Port Arthur was funded for $863 million, and we signed the project partnership agreement in November of 2019 with Jefferson County Drainage District number 7. The overall objectives of the STG program include reducing risks to human life from storm surge impacts, reducing economic damages to businesses, residents, and infrastructure, and enhancing energy security by reducing storm surge to petrochemical facilities. Port Arthur has an existing hurricane flood protection system that's made up of 28 miles of earthen levees, 6 miles of flood walls, and 13 pump stations. Port Arthur area plays a major role in the nation's economic vitality, and this community remains vulnerable to possible storm surge. Hurricanes Rita and Ike caused widespread damage and devastation across Southeast Texas, including Port Arthur. The improvements that will make up the Port Arthur project were planned to occur mostly within the footprint of the existing hurricane flood protection project, but are subject to change during our PED phase as we gather more information about the existing system. Port Arthur project is intended to make the needed improvements to the existing systems now so that those systems can be easier to improve even more in the future. And we call that adaptability. The project authorization provides for construction of these raises and improvements. And once the work is done, the system will look very similar to how it does today, but will be a better safeguard for the structures and communities behind them during coastal storm surge events. I'd like to talk about some of the main features of the project, or how some of the main ways the project will be improved. So we'll be replacing 6 miles of concrete or steel eye walls around the system. And as you can see on the left, the structure is shaped like an eye. We're replacing these eye wall structures with stronger T-walls, as you can see on the right, shaped like an upside down T with multiple structures below. These updated design T-walls are significantly improved to withstand barge impact and increased pressure caused by higher water levels. This is one of the lessons learned from Katrina. Another project feature includes raising of approximately 6 miles of our existing 28 miles of earthen levee and the creation of a separate 1,800-foot earthen levee in the Port Neches area. And the graphic on the right details a 1 to 2 foot raise, but in some cases we'll be raising the levee up to 4 feet. When raising the levee, the amount of real estate increases as the footprint widens. Next up, we'll be going around the system and replacing and looking at road closure structures. And these are gates that will be open for the majority of the time, but prior to a storm surge event, Drainage District number 7 will go around and verify and close all these gates. Additionally, we'll have railroad closure structures similar to road closure structures. They'll be maintained open most of the time, and during storm surge event will be closed. And as you can see on the right, they'll be sealed to protect the inland. So project schedule. So right now we have one project that is in construction that started in 2020, while the other sections are in the pre-construction, engineering and design, or PED phase, as I mentioned before. And then construction of the remaining sections of the Port Arthur system are scheduled to start between 2022 and 2023. And we are anticipated to be complete by the end of 26. Bobby will go into further detail on the following slides, but I'd like to mention that during the PED phase, detailed engineering, technical studies, designs, environmental compliance, and the identification of real estate needed for the project will be complete. Port Arthur team will consider many factors, such as engineering best practices, environmental impacts, and potential benefits and impacts to residents and businesses throughout the project. We look forward to engaging with the Port Arthur community as this project moves forward. Thank you. Oh yeah, one more slide, sorry about that. Project funding. This project was fully funded by Congress in 2018 for $863 million. And the project is cost shared at 65% federal and 35% non-federal, sharing the cost with Jefferson County Drainage District number 7. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Bobby Van Cleve, our lead engineer, to discuss the contracts in more detail.
All right, thanks, Charles. Good morning. My name is Bobby Van Cleve. I am the lead engineer for the Port Arthur project, and I just wanted to let everyone know that Corps of Engineers in the Galveston District has assembled a multidisciplinary team made up of many subject matter experts and engineers from around and all over the Corps, and that group has been established in order to solve technical issues and develop high quality design and engineering products. Levee improvements that we are talking about here have been broken up into several separate contracts because of the size and scope of the work involved around Port Arthur. And this was primarily driven by feedback we've received early on during the feasibility and other studies from industry. And so just wanted to help the public understand the amount of work and separate contracts that are going to be involved with the project. And but first, before I get into the specific contracts and this award schedules and work that's going on with each separate area of Port Arthur levee system, I just wanted to give a sense of the complex issues and the technical and engineering solutions that are being developed to resolve those issues along the way. First, I want to mention the enormous efforts that's been made to schedule and phase the separate work that will be involved with these contracts. There's going to be interaction and separation of the contracts along the alignment at different locations. And so it's imperative that our team tries to phase that work in a way that makes sense and continues to provide a level of protection around the system and maintains that sense of engineering control. There's also quite a few pipelines and efforts to relocate different pipelines around the system, and depending on the alignment of the levee, there's also municipal infrastructure that's in place and existing municipal and telecommunication lines that we have to work around and through and with those separate entities. So it's a work in progress of how we incorporate the existing infrastructure into and around the system. Related to that is the limited space and the amount of requirements that we're needing for construction efforts and the existing infrastructure that we have to work around. So the logistics of trying to plan that can be very complex. And so that's a very big part of the development of the plans and specs for this efforts. Charles already mentioned the closures. That's another separate item. These structures are currently existing across roadways and railroad alignments. And so the development of the closures of those to ensure that the protection for the interior of the properties around Port Arthur are maintained, that it involves a great deal of design and thought. And so we're working with those separate entities to develop those plans. Another item is we're working around areas that have soft and unstable foundation soils. So we're investigating those areas with soil borings and testing programs and surveys that would be incorporated within the documents, the design documents. And so that takes a lot of effort and forethought and planning on how we address potential settlement that could occur over time. And so evaluating the soil testing program is very critical. And then finally, I'll mention the environmental conditions that are present within this highly industrial area. Investigations have already taken place in feasibility studies, and Jeff may speak about this at some point in our discussion, but suffice it to say that there's quite a bit of effort that's going on related to environmental concerns and how the Corps is attempting to avoid and minimize any impacts related to those existing conditions. Again, in an industrial area like Port Arthur, that's basically been, these areas have been around since the early 1900s related to refineries and other chemical plants. Let me go into specifically the separate contracts and just give you a sense of where we're at on the design process and a sense of when those contracts are going to be awarded and completed as we know them to be right today. First of all, PAV01 That's our first contract. It's the only contract at this time that's under construction. And it's located along Highway 87, or otherwise known as Gulfway Drive there, and it's near the turning basin on the south side of the old Chevron tank farm. And currently, it's primarily a levee raise, and we're working through issues related to foundation improvement at that location, soft soils. So that was what this contract is working towards. And it was awarded back in March this last year, 2020, and it's planned for completion here in December of this year. And connected to 01 is 02, and it's again along Highway 87, and again near the turning basin south of the Valero refining plant. And it's currently in the very early stages of design, and we're preparing soil investigations and surveys to augment our understanding of the soil conditions and the right-of-ways in those areas for real estate. And for 02, we're planning on an award of August of 2023 with a completion date of October 2024. Then following and connected to 02 is contract 3, and it is within the Valero refinery near the turning basin south of the refinery there, and it's in the final design phases, and it primarily consists of flood walls, and the award date is planned for April of next year, 2022, with a completion date of December 2025. 3A, this contract has various locations in and around the Port Arthur area. And it's primarily, or a large portion of it is along the Sabine Pass waterway near the Boardwalk and Lamar College, which runs from Rose Hill to Houston Avenue. And so it's in the design phase. It's pretty far along, and it involves both levee raises and flood walls and closures with this contract. It's planned for award in June of 2022 with a completion date set at November of 2024. 3B, as we continue on, it's near the Port of Port Arthur and the Kansas City Southern Rail Yard. And it's in final design phase right now, with consisting of levee raises and flood walls and some large closures in that area due to the railroad systems that are in place. Planned for award in March of next year, 2022, with a completion date of January 2024. PAV04 is another one that has that's located along the Sabine Pass waterway, north from Rose Hill to the Veterans Memorial Park. And this is primarily a flood wall design there to replace and augment what's there in place, and to provide better protection in that area. Scheduled for award in April of 2023, and the completion date is estimated at October of 2026. And then lastly, our final contract, the way we've looked at it to date, it's in various locations around the system of the Port Arthur, and extends to the north ends of the systems near Port Neches Atlantic Road, and to the west near the airport, Jack Brooks Regional. And we're just now starting initial design efforts, planning for investigations, and developing those levee raises and flood walls associated with that effort. And the award and completion dates are to be determined at this time. So with that, I want to turn it over to Michaela to let her discuss some of the real estate requirements and issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. My name is Michaela Kinsey. I am one of the realty specialists assigned to this project from the Galveston District Real Estate Division. Today, I will be briefly describing the Real Estate Division's responsibility and roles in the design phase, or PED phase, of this project. So in order to determine determine the alignment for this project, our contractors and engineers require concrete data that is gathered by conducting surveys and investigations. That's where the real estate department comes in. It is our job to obtain these rights of entry from property owners to allow our contractors to access property to collect the data that is required to determine the alignment. The right of entry, or ROE, formally gives the government and its contractors permission to access private properties and to conduct these surveys and investigations that you see listed here on the slide. The right of entry packages that the real estate team creates include the right of entry document itself, as well as a signature page, a description of the types of surveys and investigations that would take place on the property, a map showing the impacted property, and a contact information form. Up on the screen, you can see an example of both a map showing impacted property as well as a contact information form. On the lower half of the contact information form, we have a special section for site-specific conditions. The site-specific conditions are any requests or restrictions that the owners may have for us while the contractors are on their property. With residential owners, we usually see things along the lines of asking to be notified a certain number of days in advance. They may warn us that there's pets or wildlife in the area to be cautious around, or they may ask that we only conduct business during certain hours of the day. With commercial and industrial property owners, their requests are usually more specific to access, or they may request that we only work within certain areas on the property during a certain time frame so that we're not interrupting their day-to-day business operations. I hope this explanation gave more insight into why ROEs are so essential to our engineering team. Upon design completion and identification of all real estate needs for the project, DD7 will be issued a notice from the Corps to move forward with land acquisition. DD7 is responsible for acquiring all the lands needed for the project. All land acquisitions will follow the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970. At this time, there are no home or commercial relocation assistance anticipated for this project. While some of the lands outside of DD7's existing right-of-way will be needed for the project, we will be working within their right-of-way as much as possible. When acquiring lands for the project, an appraisal report will be done to determine the fair market value of the property. Property owners will have the opportunity to accompany the appraiser on this inspection, and property owners will be offered the fair market value of the property. That concludes the real estate portion of the presentation, and I will pass it back on to Kelly.
Before we open it up for public engagement, Q&A session, I wanted to make you aware of a website that we have put out on the Army Corps', jumping right off of the Army Corps' main page down here in Galveston, where you can get information about the entire program, as well as each individual project that's being designed and constructed therein. The page includes information about not only the project background, but information about the upcoming public info sessions. For example, we have another one tonight, and links to either background documentation that you might want to read through if you're wondering about certain aspects of these programs and the plans, or if you are an AE firm and interested in the contracting activities that are ongoing for the project. There is an industry news section on the website that will allow you to get some information about, what is being put out there for bid. On the very far left-hand corner, what you will find is a link to a brand new tool that we just stood up this last week called the Story Map. And the Story Map is basically encapsulating all the maps you just saw in this presentation in an immersive environment where you can literally go to the Story Map, type in your home address or your business address, and it will zoom to that location, and you can pan around and get a better feel for what is being proposed and when it's being proposed in your community. And so I would direct you to the Story Map. to get some information, to get the kind of cost schedules, all of the contracts. It will give you an idea of if you were to see, bulldozers on your street, what we're doing and when we're doing it and how soon it will be constructed and for what reason. So with that, Connor, I'll hand it back to you so that we can start our Q&A session.
Thank you, Kelly. As a reminder, we encourage you to continue entering questions into the chat feature as we move into the Q&A session, and we'll begin that Q&A session in just a few moments. Please just bear with us as we collect the questions that are coming in. All right, we have a handful of questions so far. It looks like our first question is for Charles, and that is, how are we engaging local construction firms in this project?
So we're engaging local construction firms by, in the past, we've held industry days where the community can come in and local industry can get an idea of the project and how we plan to phase in contracts and what contracts are coming up. Additionally, we have the website where they can get more information. And we did get information from the Port Arthur City Council meeting that they're interested in local participation. So we're actually going to do we're coordinating a small business industry day in Port Arthur. And if DD7 has anything to add, I know we've been discussing this, so that's our plan for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles.
I want to just add that when we do that, we will post that out on the website. So keep a wary eye out, and we'll let you guys know when that industry day is set to occur.
Thank you, Kelly. For our next question, I'm going to go right back to you, Charles. What are the anticipated impacts to the city's boardwalk, and how are these being addressed?
So the anticipated impacts to the boardwalk, right now we're in the design phase, so we're going to have to remove the boardwalk to complete the design. But our plan is to replace it in kind if we can, based on the agreements and the legal situation with it. But our goal is to minimize and avoid any impacts as best as we can on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, for Jeff, what are you doing to mitigate environmental impacts from the project?
A good question. So during the feasibility phase of this project, we underwent an environmental review called an environmental impact statement. In that assessment, we looked at potential adverse effects that could occur due to the construction of this project. This particular segment of the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay study, which is in Port Arthur, is mostly constructed in existing industrial areas and alongside our existing infrastructure. For that reason, there was no specific environmental mitigation identified for this portion of the project. That said, that is contingent upon us doing a number of activities to avoid and minimize impacts by avoiding environmentally sensitive areas and making sure that we implement the required best management practices like silt curtains and things like that to reduce any adverse impacts.
Thank you, Jeff. We have a few more questions left that have been submitted, but I do want to take this opportunity to continue to encourage everyone to keep sending those questions in so we can make sure and get those answered during the Q&A session here today. Our next question for Charles, how will the project impact shipping or boat traffic?
We anticipate minimal impact at this time. We're working with the U.S. Coast Guard and the Sabine Natchez Navigation District and the Pilots Association as we progress through the project. And we get an understanding of what the contractor will be doing on site to better answer that question.
Understood. Thank you, Charles. Our next question is for our non-federal sponsor, DD7. How much will our taxes go up with this project?
Well, just to give a little background, prior to Tropical Storm Harvey, we experienced a breach in our levee system that was declared to be a maintenance and operation issue by the Corps of Engineers. So that breach threatened to deplete our entire reserve fund balance. So after Harvey, our board unanimously agreed that we should increase our tax rate. And that was done over a period of 3 fiscal years, not only to provide or replenish our reserve fund balance, but to also prepare us to pay our matching funds for grants, as well as to reserve funds to pay for this project. Now, on a good note, we worked very much with the governor's office, along with several members of the Senate, our local senators, local representatives, and the General Land Office. And the state appropriated $200 million toward this project, to Galveston Project. That money is being held by the General Land Office. Our portion of the 200 million is around 106 million. So we're very thankful for the state of Texas for helping us out on this project. And we're also working currently with the state administration to hopefully have more money appropriated to this project. So we have virtually put ourselves in a position to where if the state does not continue to help fund this project, that we will be in a situation that we can fund our local share. So with that said, over the course of 3 years, our tax rate did increase, and we're continuing to grow our reserve fund balance.
Thank you very much. Our next question is also for GD7, and that is, do the oil companies pay anything for this system as it mainly protects them from devastating storm surge?
Well, the fact is we have, or fortunately, we have a lot of industry located within our district, and they're responsible for a little over 1/3 of all of our tax revenue. So based upon that, industry is in effect helping to pay for this project.
Thank you. So at this time, that's all the questions that have come through. I do want to give it a little bit more time, a few more moments, if any questions are still being submitted. So in the meantime, I just want to reiterate what Kelly mentioned a few minutes ago. We do have our 3rd public information session for the Port Arthur project this evening at 6 p.m. And then we also just encourage everyone to visit the program and the project website, as well as the story maps. It looks like we just got another question coming in, so give us a second to collect that. Okay, the question just came in. I believe this would be for Charles. The Lamar State College Port Arthur Armory building is very close to the seawall. Will this project affect the educational programs being held during the construction phase?
Our goal is to minimize and avoid impacts. Right now, we'll be looking at doing a flood wall replacement in that area. And I think our alignment is shifted away from any educational facilities. And so we do have Bobby coming out some minimal impact requirements for our drilling of the batter piles underneath the gym structure.
Yeah, again, like Charles says, the initial design that we've worked through in this area, obviously recognizing the proximity of these structures and the importance of them to maintain their capabilities as they exist today. Our goal is to minimize impacts, but also realizing, to improve the levee system, the foundations need to be improved for that, and it will relate to a T-wall type structure that was described earlier in the presentation. And like Charles says, involve battering and providing pile support for a foundation. And so our goal as understanding the design better and the construction issues that will be occurring as we get into that level of detail will be to very closely monitor any efforts for foundation improvements, and that would mean something in the category of providing some kind of instrumentation to limit the amount of vibrations for those important structures. And so that's all going to be a part of that, but regardless, our goal is to minimize and mitigate impacts on the day-to-day operations of those structures.
Thank you, Charles and Bobby. We do have another couple of questions that have come through. The next one for DD7. Aside from funding their share, what other responsibilities do the non-federal partners have? As an example, do the non-federal partners have any responsibility for the selection, oversight, and payment of contractors involved in the project?
Well, that might be a better question for the Corps, but we do have input to the design of the contracts working with the Corps of Engineers, but we don't have any oversight of those contractors. That's with the Corps of Engineers.
Thank you, Charles. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, I'll add that we are working through one of our first procurements to add advisory support from DD7 in our procurement process. So they will be able to provide some critical information to the team as they move forward in the procurement of the contractors. So they'll be participating, but they won't be a voting member through our process.
Thank you, Charles. Our last question so far for Kelly, will the Q&A from each session be published?
Absolutely. What we're doing right now is video recording this entire session, including the presentation up front and the Q&A that has come in at the end here. And our intent is to provide a video out on the website for each of the public info sessions. So not only for today's, but also for tonight's and for last night's, so that those who couldn't join us can actually follow through at their own time and see, the presentation as well as what the community interests are and what kinds of questions the community is starting to think about to ask us. And again, we'll repeat these sessions into the future on a regular basis. So this is just the beginning, and we look forward to engaging with yourselves well into the future as the project grows to maturity.
Thank you, Kelly. And not seeing any further questions come through, we'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and the questions you provided this morning. We just have a few minutes remaining in the meeting. If you have any additional questions, you may send them to the project email address. And Kelly, I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Connor, thank you for facilitating and mediating. We really appreciate your help. And thank you all for your time and your interest. We really are looking for ways to make contact and let you know about the project. We don't want it to be a panic call because bulldozers have arrived on your street. We want to make sure that you're well informed, that you know when things are happening, how long it's going to take, what types of disruptions you can expect. We really appreciate your feedback during these Q&A sessions, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you again for your participation today and the interest that you have shown in the Port Arthur project. This meeting is now adjourned, and we'll close the WebEx.